Hello everybody, this is day 3 of e-learning. I hope everybody's good and that you're making the best of hanging out at home with your families. And kiddos, I hope you're finding that doing your lessons on the laptops and stuff is kind of fun. So anyways, all right, so today I'm going to share with you guys a new book called Rocket Writes a Story. Some of you may have either read on your own or heard me read to you how Rocket learned to read. And that one, if you remember, the little yellow bird finds Rocket and she wants to recruit him as her student. And he's like, "You're what?" He didn't know what that meant. All he wanted to do was take naps and dig for bones, and he didn't want to have anything to do with school and with learning. But she started to read to them, and that got his attention, and eventually she learned how to teach him the alphabet. And as he learned the alphabet, he learned some words. So that's kind of where we pick up here, is that Rocket is learning lots and lots of new words. We're going to see a lot of those words that he's learning. But now he's going to put them together in a story. And tonight, since we've got this cute little dog here, I've got my cute little dog right here. This is Trooper, everyone. Say, "Hey, Trooper." Trooper's going to listen to the story with you guys tonight. And hopefully he doesn't interrupt. But yes, this is Trooper. This is his favorite spot to be, on the couch up here at night. And he'll just hang out for a while. So hope you enjoy this one. And then just like before, when I'm finished reading, Trooper and I will give you some resources on my own. And also I'm going to give you something that you might be interested in doing for yourself. All right. Trooper's ready. Are you guys ready? All right. Here we go with Rocket Writes a Story, and it is by Tad Hills. And in this case, Tad Hills had both jobs. He was not only the author, so he was the writer of this story about writing a story, but he's the illustrator as well. So that means he was also responsible for doing the pictures. So he had 2 jobs here. All right, Rocket loved books. He loved to read them to himself or to sit quietly by his teacher, the little yellow bird, and there she is, as she read them aloud. Rocket even liked the way books smelled. When he opened a new book, it smelled like a place he'd never been to, like a friend he'd never met. Trooper's moving around over here. The little yellow bird agreed. Books are inspiring. They make me sing. Rocket loved words too. After snack time, his teacher would say, "Rocket, why don't you use that nose of yours to sniff out some new words?" And then off he'd go. He'd fetch some nice ones like buttercup. That's the kind of flower that is. Or bug and feathers and nest. "I'm looking for words," Rocket would announce to anyone who would listen. Why don't you look around where you are right now? Probably there in front of your laptop or computer if you're listening to this story. Look around. Do you see some things that might be interesting words? If I look around here, I can see television. I look across the room, I can see a raised bobblehead. That's kind of a fun word, isn't it? Bobblehead. And I can see candles. So look around your spot right now. What do you see? Anything interesting? How about dog? Yes, we see Trooper. Rocket always brought his words back to the classroom and he wrote them down. The little yellow bird would help him spell the tricky ones, and then they'd hang them on their word tree. Sometimes the bird added her own words to the collection. "This one is small, but I promise it'll come in handy," she'd say. She's holding the word up. We can very much imagine why the bird chose the word up. "Magnificent," chirped the little yellow bird, once that their tree was covered. "Now, what shall we do with all these splendid words?" Rocket thought all afternoon, and then he had an idea. Look at their tree. Kind of like the word wall that your teachers create in the classroom, where they add in those sight words that you're learning, kindergarten and first graders. Other guys, as you learn words in reading or you won't learn words in science, your teachers add those words on there. Let's see, for some of the cool words, Rocket found grass, which makes sense as he's walking around, fly, cloud, bird, nest, tree, feather, log, ant, flower, leaf. And then he's got some of those words that you need to connect all of those words. For example, in, like there was a nest in the tree. Or a word like the. We know how common that word is. So those are some of the words that he has in his tree also. Rocket left school that day with a very waggy tail. "I'm going to write a story," he declared to his friends, Fred and Emma. "My story will be an adventure about the great wide world," he told Butterfly. "I will use many words," he explained to Mr. Barker. "Hello up there," he called as he passed the tree where he had found the word nest. "I'm going to write a story." And you can tell that Rocket is really excited about this. The next day, Rocket returned to his classroom. It was time to begin. He looked down at that blank page, and the blank page looked back up at him. But no story would come. This is the tricky part about writing, is sometimes you want to write, but you're just looking at that blank page, you got your pencil in your hand, and no ideas come up here. And you just feel like you don't know what to say. It's called writer's block, but it's normal. At snack time, Rocket just gave up. "I don't know what to write," he told his teacher. Now, she's going to give him a little bit of help. She said, "Don't worry. One of the hardest parts of writing is coming up with a good story. But it's one of the most fun, too. Perhaps you want to write about something that you've seen." He said, "Like a bug?" "Yes," sang the teacher. "Stories need good characters. Maybe you've seen around your house or your apartment, maybe you've seen a snake. Maybe you've seen a butterfly. Maybe you've seen a storm rolling in. I can hear one coming in right now. I can hear the trees blowing. Maybe you looked outside and you saw a fancy, expensive car that you might like to have." She said, "Or maybe write about something that happened to you or something that you really enjoy. Did you go for a walk today? What did you see out there? Maybe you visited a friend. Or as far as something that you enjoy, do you like skateboarding or do you like playing video games?" There's something you could write about. Rocket suggested, "What about my favorite stick?" "Of course," said the bird, "or you could write about something that inspires you." "Inspires me?" asked Rocket. "Yeah, something that excites you," the little bird sang. Maybe it's playing a sport. I know a lot of you guys out there play baseball. Maybe you're a dancer. Maybe you play an instrument. What is something that excites you? Rocket took a walk and looked for inspiration. He thought about friends he knew and places he'd been. He stuck his nose high in the air and he sniffed the gentle breeze. And there it was, a delightful smell of pine needles and feathers. His inspiration. For the rest of the morning, he thought about feathers and pine needles and feathers. And that afternoon, he started to write. In the evening, Rocket followed the beautiful smell until he found himself at the tree with the nest. "Hello again," he called into the branches. "Is anyone home?" He heard some rustling from above, but no one answered. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I must tell you that you smell very nice, very inspiring. May I ask who you are?" Still nothing. "Perhaps I'll come back at a more convenient time," he said, and he trotted off. That night, as Rocket watched the stars, he thought about feathers and a nest in a pine tree. He thought about his story and his collection of words. See, now he's starting to get some ideas going on in his head. And you see, it didn't happen just all of a sudden when he was staring at that blank paper. He's had to give it some time. On his way to school the next day, Rocket was surprised by what he saw. "A brand new word," he said, "and it's already written down. It says," and he tried to sound the word out. Look carefully. O-W-L. O-W makes the owl sound. So we've got owl. "Owl," came a quiet voice from the branches. "It says owls. That's me." "Thank you, Owl," Rocket called. "I'm always looking for words, and this one's a beauty." Rocket ran all the way to his classroom. O-W-L, owl. "Now that's a word you don't hear every day," chirped the little yellow bird. "Only 3 letters, but what a word." "It was a present," explained Rocket, and he added the new word to his story. "I'm writing a story about you," Rocket announced proudly to the owl the next morning. The owl poked her head out of her nest, and for the first time, Rocket saw her friendly face. Her big round eyes blinked below feathery tufts. "About me?" she asked softly. "Would you like to come down and hear it?" asked Rocket. "Thank you, but I think I'll listen from my nest," the owl answered. So Rocket cleared his throat and began to read. Once there was an owl. She smelled like feathers and pine needles. She lived in a tree. The owl's eyes widened. "Oh, is there more?" "Oh, there will be," said Rocket. See, he got started and he got her attention. A lot like the little yellow bird got Rocket's attention in our last book. Each day, Rocket worked on his story. He wrote words down and then crossed some of those words out. When things were going well, he wagged his tail. When he didn't know what to write, he got frustrated and he growled. "Rrr." Sometimes he drew pictures for his story, or he took a walk in the meadow to look for some more inspiration. See, again, it's not going to all come at once. You just have to work on it a little bit at a time. And he was making those changes and stuff. We call that editing. The little yellow bird encouraged him. "Remember, stories take time," she said. She wanted to know more about the owl, and she asked Rocket some questions. "Why do you think the owl wouldn't come down? What color is her beak? What does she do every day?" By coming up with these questions and then Rocket filling in the answers, those are adding details to the story. I'm sure you guys have heard your teachers talk about adding details. Tell more about what something looked like, what it felt like, what did it sound like. Rocket wanted to know more about the owl too. He visited her tree often and he read her his story, which changed every day. The owl was captivated. Yes, he has her attention now. And if you look closely, we can see the owl started up here at the top of the tree. And then as he read, She came down a little bit more, and she came down a little bit more, and look at this here. Now he's really got her attention. She's really close to Rocket. And when Rocket stopped, she would always ask, then what happened? She wants to know what happens next. How does it end? And last came the day when Rocket knew that he was finished. What a fine story, chirped the little yellow bird after she'd read it. And we can see here, I'm gonna flip this around so you can see it. He titled it, My First Story by Rocket. Rocket ran to the owl's pine tree. It's done, he called, come listen. He's very excited. And so down, 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 all the way down came the owl till she was right beside Rocket. Then Rocket began to read. He read about an owl with friendly eyes and a beak the color of a buttercup. She lived in a nest high in a tree at the edge of a meadow and smelled like pine needles and feathers. She liked to nap in the daytime and listen to stories. Do you hear all those details that Rocket shared and told us about? We know what color she is. We know what she likes to do. We know where she lives. Branch by branch, the owl came down from her nest. Rocket read. She was shy, but she was brave too. Suddenly, Rocket stopped. He wrote something on his paper, and then he began to read again. He got one more idea. One day, the owl came all the way to the ground and became my friend. The owl blinked. Can there be one more sentence, she asked. Can you say, and the owl liked the story very much? What a perfect ending, said Rocket. And it was. And there is the end of our story today. So you can see that Rocket really had to work at this storytelling idea, and it didn't come to him all at one time, but he didn't give up. He kept working. All right, so this is what I'm gonna show you two things here, and then I'm gonna give you guys a little task. Just like the other days, I looked on Mayan to see what you might be able to find some other books that are about how to write stories. And I found a couple things. One, there's a Katie Woo series, and you guys know that we do have some of those Katie Woo books in the library. And Katie Woo has some books about keeping a journal. She's got one about writing a narrative, which is a story like we just read here. She's got one about writing an opinion, and she's got one about how to write a letter. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow. There was also, and this is probably a good series for the younger grades. And then for my older kids, we've got Writing Stories, another series. And it tells you about how to write stories about animals, how to write fairy tales, mysteries, scary stories, or funny stories. This group is a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth, so better for the older kids. There was another one called Once Upon a Time about writing a fairy tale, and this one, Show Me a Story. Again, probably it goes into a little bit more detail for my older kids. But if you just search writing in the search bar on Mayan, you're going to see these ideas as well as a few more. Now, I have an idea of my own. This is what I was thinking. Did Rocket inspire you guys to want to write a story? I hope so. This is what I want you to think about. Tomorrow or one other day this week, I want you to go outside and go for a walk around your house or around the block, whatever you're able to do. If you can't go outside there, take a walk around your house. Look around maybe the next time you're in the car on your way to Walmart or to Publix or Target or something like that, and look for some cool words. Look for something that might be happening. Maybe there's a car broken down on the sidewalk, so on the side of the road. Maybe the fire engine goes past you while you are out there. Look for something that's happening. If you're not able to go anywhere, choose something that's kind of interesting on TV. Find maybe on Animal Planet. Find a cool channel. And look to see what the animals are doing or what animals they're teaching you about. All right? Or maybe even think about your current situation. Is it kind of interesting? Is it boring? And think about what it's been like for the last couple of weeks of kind of having to stay inside. Find your inspiration. Find something that is interesting to you. And just like Rocket did, I want you to take the next couple days, come up with some words, find some words and ideas so that you can put together to write your own story. Notice I'm not saying do this tomorrow. I'm saying take the next couple of days. If you're able to put together a story, right, Trooper? If you're able to put together a story and you can find a way to share your story with your teacher and then ask your teacher to share it with me, whether you take a picture of it and send it to you and then they send it to me, I would love to be able to read some of your stories here on our YouTube channel and be able to, maybe you can inspire some other kids to write too. All right, so look around, give it some thought, get a blank piece of paper and start writing down some ideas. I would love to be able to read as well as to share some of your stories, a lot like what Rocket wrote for us today. All right, so give it a shot. All right, I think that's about all we got for tonight. Say bye, troops. Say bye. Bye-bye. And we'll be back again tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.